What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. Today I'm bringing to you my meta-analysis for the August and September 2017 format. This may not seem like a big deal to a lot of you guys, but the thing is that you do have to keep in mind the regional season for the 2017 season officially starts in a couple weeks. So between now and by the time we're going to be getting a new ban list sometime in mid-September, according to Konami, there's anywhere from like 25 to possibly maybe 40 or even 50 different regionals that might take place in that short span of time. And also this applies to any other local tournaments as well as if there's any other ARGs going on or any other just large tournaments that you might want to be attending. Even though there aren't really any at the YCS level, this is something that you're going to want to keep in mind. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into that pie chart. So interestingly enough, Code of the Duelist is released today, but Code of the Duelist doesn't have an impact on the meta like a lot of people might expect. For my prediction, I'm predicting that True Draco Zodiac is going to be the most popular deck of the format, followed by Pure Zodiac, not too far behind, and then we're also going to have stuff like True Draco Demise, we're going to have Dinosaurs, as well as some Invoked sticking its head in there as well. So keep in mind, this is purely my subjective opinion, so I'm not like this all-foreseeing oracle or anything like that. This is just based off of my predictions and from the latest trends that I've seen going forward, of what I expect that, you know, if you're still going to be competing at any sort of competitive level, this is what you should expect to be going up against. And if you're trying to prepare your side deck, or hell, even your main deck for that matter, this is what you need to be prepared for. So, starting off with True Draco Zodiac. So, for the longest time, as you guys have known, for anyone who keeps up with my meta-analyses, this is the deck that always came in second to Pure Zodiac. But I think we're going to start to see a shift for this very short little format, and the reason for that is because True Draco Zodiac can capitalize much more now that we are in the Link era than Pure Zodiac. Pure Zodiac kind of falls a little bit behind because although it can still function very well, True Draco Zodiac can kind of capitalize on a lot of different aspects and almost isn't as hindered as a deck like Pure Zodiac because it's a lot more dynamic in what it does. And this is namely in part to the tribute summoning mechanic of the True Draco Zodiac deck. You've got stuff like your Dynamite Knight, you've got stuff like Ignis Heat, as well as Masterpiece, the True Draco Slaying King. This should come as no surprise that these are still some of the most incredibly powerful cards at the deck's disposal. You've got Ignis and you've got Dynamite Knight, as well as Majesty Maiden to an extent as well, that just generate free +1s, and thanks in tandem to cards like True King's Return, as well as Heritage, and if you want to go as far as Disciples and Apocalypse as well, they are incredibly easy to summon out, especially if you just have an extra Zodiac lying around. But then the big daddy here is Masterpiece. Having a Masterpiece on the board, especially now that we have, you know, gotten into the Link era, Masterpiece is even more difficult to deal with than it was before because the game is just a lot more restrictive in that manner, and a lot of methods that you might have used previously to deal with something like Masterpiece may not be as easily to now undertake. So Masterpiece kind of got better in that sense, and any deck that can utilize Masterpiece to its full potential, which True Draco Zodiac can, and can thoroughly abuse the deck beyond absolute belief, this is the deck that I feel is going to be the strongest moving into this format. Now obviously the ban list is going to change up a lot when we do finally get that ban list in mid-September, and you can definitely for sure bet that this deck as well as Pure Zodiac are going to be the biggest targets. So when we get into our meta-analysis post mid-September, it's going to look a lot different, at least I hope so. Now moving on to Pure Zodiac. So again, Pure Zodiac has been the reigning dominant deck for a long time now, but it's kind of fallen in second place in my opinion now because of the Link mechanic itself. You're so reliant now on being able to do stuff like resurrecting a Trident with a Chakanine and using a Tiger Mortar to put a material underneath that Trident, whereas before you could still do that, but there were so many other different methods and different types of plays you could do that you weren't forced to doing it in that certain manner. And I feel that now, because you have so much more True Draco Zodiac to deal with, and because Masterpiece is slightly more difficult and more annoying to deal with because we are now in the Link era, I feel that you're not going to see this deck being around as much, and you definitely should be preparing more for True Draco Zodiac more than the Pure Zodiac matchup. That doesn't mean you should completely neglect the Pure Zodiac matchup whatsoever, but when you still have cards like Dimensional Barrier at 3 that pretty much can completely shut down the deck, that's definitely something you're going to want to consider in your sideboard, and pretty much focus on your True Draco Zodiac for your main deck if that's the route you're going to want to go. You know, Cosmic Cyclones in the main deck, or at the very least in the side deck, things like that. Now moving on, we have True Draco Demise. Now the reason True Draco Demise is still up here is because the deck is incredibly powerful. Now, the deck does get blown out by a card like Zaphion the Time Lord, but the thing about the deck is it runs an insane amount of draw power and is completely unhindered by the fact we are now in the Link era. It doesn't need to use the extra monster zone whatsoever. The deck's main focus is to draw as many fucking cards as possible and to just turbo out cards like Dynamite Knight, Majesty Maiden, and ultimately get out your Masterpiece. And if this deck can manage to assemble multiple Masterpieces on the field, then it's just going to be game over. But any deck in my eyes that can run Pot of Desires, Card of Demise, True Draco Heritage, and Pot of Duality is definitely a deck that you should fear and definitely be prepared for if you're going to be playing the game in any sort of competitive capacity whatsoever. Now the last two decks we have on here, the first being True King Dinosaurs, as well as True King Yang Zing Dinosaurs as well, just depending on the variant that you're choosing to play, because there are so many different variants now. There's Pure Dinosaur, then there's the True King Dinosaur, True King Yang Zing Dinosaur. Some people are just playing Yang Zing Dinosaur. There's so many fucking variants of this deck right now that I'm kind of just making one big conglomerate and putting it here on the pie chart. So the reason this deck is on here is very similarly to True Draco Demise. This deck isn't really hindered by the extra monster zone at all. Now, previously, you could do some absolutely ridiculous fucking shit with this deck, like mix up like VFD, Logia, and like just a bunch of other like fucking rank 4s that are just insanely powerful. But now you're much more restricted in that capacity, but the deck didn't really need to go that far. That was kind of just your win more tactic if you top decked Soul Charge, or if you just had the ability to do some of those flashy plays. The deck can still very easily take an Overraptor and transform it into a Danglong, which ultimately results in 2 different negates, and that's just off of 1 card. That's something that you cannot overlook whatsoever. But then you have all the different synergies with stuff like Lithosygym, and you've got the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno, which is an insanely powerful boss monster that doesn't need the extra monster zone whatsoever. You can summon multiple copies of it, but then you still have access to your things like Logia, like Dolka, any of your tech rank 4s, anything like that. The deck is still perfectly capable of going into, but you don't need to rely on it like most decks that typically need to use the extra deck have to, and that's why this deck is such a heavy contender. This is currently the #1 deck in the OCG, so this is something you're going to want to keep on your radar, because in the meta-analyses to come in the future, possibly even in mid-September, you might see Dinosaurs being at the forefront of the meta-analysis. But if you're worried about this deck, side in your Skullmeister, side in Macrocosmos. Hell, if you're playing Abyss Dweller, you're pretty much already going to have the deck on lockdown anyway. Last but not least, we do have Invoked. I wanted to have Invoked in here in some way or another. Now, I know Invoked is more so of an engine than a deck itself, but there's so many different decks that Invoked can actually be utilized in. Now that we have Spellbook of Knowledge from Code of the Duelist, you might see the Spellbook engine splash in with the Invoked engine as well, but you could see that in a variety of different decks, such as Wind Witches, because they can make stuff like an untargetable or an undestroyable Crystal Wing, in addition to a bunch of other stuff. You might see it even mixed with True Draco. This is a strategy that the OCG also adopted, because being able to combine these powerful archetypes just into one deck actually proves to have some pretty fair results, especially since True Draco doesn't really need to use the extra deck whatsoever, so you can have some incredibly powerful monsters backed up by the Invoked extra deck lineup that's utilizing the extra monster zone, and together, it seems to make a pretty good formula. So that's why I wanted to have it on the list in some form or another. I don't think we're going to see this really take off tremendously until post mid-September ban list, but don't be surprised if you go to a regional regional or even your locals, and you see people testing out the Invoked engine in some of their decks just because it's extremely powerful and it should definitely not be overlooked. So overall, if you're looking for decks out of Code of the Duelist on the meta analysis, they're just not here yet. The only thing you might possibly see is someone trying to get away and pull out a win with Trickstars, because Trickstars, in my view, are pretty much the only deck that actually has the potential to maybe do well and steal a top at a regional, especially if people don't understand what the deck fully does yet. The deck is pretty much just slow burn the deck and prevent you from playing or really disrupting a lot of your different plays. So if you're not prepared for that, you're definitely going to want to study up on what those cards do, but I don't think it's anything that poses too heavy of a threat that you should really focus on it tremendously. These are the decks that you really need to focus your time on, but as for that, Code of the Duelist really doesn't have the major impact that a lot of people might not be anticipating. But with a ban list right around the corner in mid-September, who knows what's possible, and it's very possible that we might see some of these Link decks maybe do well in the very near future. But guys, that's going to do it for my meta analysis. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think is going to pop up in this small little format we have before the mid-September ban list. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Maybe we're going to see some cool rogue decks pop up for a very short time, but honestly, because, you know, we don't really have too much time before this format comes to a close, I really just wanted to get this video out to help any of you guys who have a regional coming up or any big tournament. Maybe it's a case tournament, maybe it's like a PS4 tournament, whatever it may be. This is hopefully a little guide to help you guys out. So guys, thank you so much for watching the video. Be sure to like the video as always, subscribe to the channel for more amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content, and if you found this video informative, consider backing me on Patreon, because just by pledging only $1 a month, you're investing in my ability to continue bringing you amazing Yu-Gi-Oh content. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you next time.